This video classroom lesson is sponsored by Transmission Bench. Visit the transmissionbench.com store for the deluxe super kit, other parts, and even the video classroom lessons used during this project.
Here's a little trivia. The E4OD 4R100 is based upon a 3-speed transmission which Ford introduced way back in 1966, the C6. As a matter of fact, the rear section we installed in the last lesson and the midsection we're about to in this lesson are, except for a few minor variations, the same as in the C6 transmission from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 1990s. They simply added an overdrive section to the front of a rugged, proven design they already had. Welcome back to class. This is Ford E4OD 4R100 class, Lesson 11. If you'll recall, Lesson 10 was about case preparation and assembly of the rear area of the transmission. During this lesson, we'll assemble the forward and direct clutch drums and test them with air pressure to make sure they will work properly. After that, we'll install them into the case along with the intermediate band and intermediate clutch pack. Let's begin by getting the forward clutch drum from the parts bench and taking it to another work area. Set the forward drum to center support thrust bearing aside. Unhook and remove these two sealing rings. Spread the ends just enough to get them out of their grooves. Work carefully because they are sharp, brittle, and break easily. Unhook and remove the other one. Turn the forward drum over. Use a small screwdriver to remove this snap ring. Lift out a thick end plate. Turn it over and set it onto the snap ring. Lift out a pack of 4 friction and 4 thin steel plates. Turn them over and place them onto the end plate. Lift out a bluish colored spring steel wavy cushion plate. This plate compresses, flattening out to soften or cushion engagement feel when the transmission is placed into drive. Turn it over and set it down as removed onto the last thin steel plate of the clutch pack. Finally, lift the apply plate out. Notice one side is tapered where it contacts the Belleville return spring. Turn it over and set it onto the wavy cushion plate. We need to remove this snap ring which fastened the Belleville spring. Use a medium-sized screwdriver to pry it out. Lift out the return spring, turn it over, and set it aside. Lift out the apply ring. This end gap is normal. Twist and pull the piston out. Take a close look at how the lip seal is installed into its groove. Note the flare or lip of the seal points downward to the hydraulic chamber area of the piston. Turn it over and set it onto the apply ring. The inner piston seal is an O-ring, not a lip type seal. Pinch it together and remove it. Set it next to the piston. Let's get the new piston seals and sealing rings from the overhaul package. Here are the piston seals. They're in a sub-kit labeled forward and direct clutch. We'll also need another sub-kit labeled sealing ring kit. The replacement inner piston seal is this green O-ring. Install it into its groove. The outer seals for the forward and direct clutch pistons may at first seem similar, but are actually quite different. The one for the forward clutch piston has a much wider lip. Install it into its groove with the lip pointing downward. Add fluid to it and the inner bore. You will need a tool to help work the outer seal into the drum bore. Believe it or not, one of the best tools for shoehorning piston lip seals can be made from a 50-cent plastic notebook from Walmart. Simply use scissors to cut out a shape similar to this. Use the tool to work the lip of the seal and piston into the drum bore. Set the apply ring into its groove on the piston. The Belleville type return spring goes in next. As I mentioned in an earlier lesson, it should look like this one without any cracks or separations. It is disc-shaped. Install it with the inner fingers pointing downward. Install the snap ring. Now we can install the forward clutch pack. Get the apply plate. It has a bevel side. The bevel side goes downward and pivots on the Belleville spring. Set the thin, wavy cushion plate in next. The 4 friction and 4 thin steel plates go in next and are always replaced with new ones. Let's get them from the kit. Here they are. The steels used in the forward and direct clutch drums are the same. There are 9 in the kit. We need 4. The 4 friction plates used in the forward clutch are different from other friction plates. Notice the fine V-shaped inner splines. We need the new ones from the kit. Here are the unique forward friction plates. There are 4 of them. Like the frictions used in the low reverse clutch, these friction plates should also be pre-soaked in transmission fluid. Place one of the thin steel plates into the drum onto the wavy cushion plate. Install a friction plate. Continue in this manner until all 4 steel and friction plates are in place. The last one should be a friction plate. Install the thick end plate. Finally, replace the snap ring. There should be some in play. Use a combination of feeler gauge blades and measure the clearance. It should be between 30 and 56 thousandths of an inch. I measure about 35 thousandths, which is fine. Turn the drum over. The sealing rings go in next. There are two different types of sealing rings for the forward drum in the kit: Teflon scarf cut and iron hook type. You can use either, but I prefer to use the iron type. Carefully install them into their grooves. Spread the ends only enough for the ring to go over the groove shoulders. Hook the ends together. Put a few drops of fluid onto them. Add fluid to the forward drum to center support thrust bearing. Set it onto the drum. The narrower race, which has an inner lip, goes downward onto the raised area on the drum. Set the finished forward clutch drum to the side. Since the old clutch plates and sealing rings are no longer needed, I'll remove them from the bench. Get the direct clutch drum from the parts bench. Remember to support it from below in order to prevent the intermediate sprag race from falling off. Lift the intermediate sprag clutch outer race and sprag cage assembly off of the drum, turn them over, and set them aside. Lift off the plastic or metal thrust washer and set it onto the outer race. Turn the direct clutch drum over. Lift out the metal 4-tab direct drum to forward drum thrust washer. Turn it over and set it aside. This is the direct clutch pack. It is applied or compressed together in reverse and when the transmission shifts to third gear. Remove this snap ring. Lift out a thick end plate. Turn it over and set it onto the snap ring. Lift out the clutch pack. It consists of, depending upon model, either 4 or 5 steel plates along with 4 or 5 friction plates. Our demo model, which was paired to a gasoline engine, has 4 steel and 4 friction plates. Diesel models typically have 5 of each in order to handle the additional torque. Turn them over and set them like so. Take note the direct clutch has no cushion plate. All of the plates are completely flat. In order to replace the piston lip seals, we must use a spring cage compressor in order to remove this snap ring. I use a foot press, but as I mentioned in an earlier lesson, there are inexpensive handheld and benchtop devices which will do the same thing. Set the snap ring and spring cage aside. Twist and pull the piston out. Note the seals are not on the piston. They're in grooves in the drum. Turn the piston over and set it onto the spring cage. Get the remaining 2 lip seals from the seal subkit. Remove the inner lip seal. The flare of the seal points downward. Install the new one. Remove the outer seal. Again, notice how the lip or flare points downward. Install the new one. If you have elected to purchase and install the optional Transgo HD Tugger kit, there is a special outer seal which will need to be installed now. Let's go to the Transgo kit. According to the instructions from the Transgo kit, page 6, step 1, you must install a special D-ring style outer direct clutch piston seal. Here it is. Again, perform this step only if you are installing this kit. Don't forget to mark your progress by circling the step. Since I am installing the HD kit, I'll remove the new seal I just installed and replace it with the special seal. Putting it in the groove is a little unusual. You must roll it over and install it inside out. The white stripe should be facing outward. Lubricate the seals and piston with paste lube. Push the piston down into its bore until it bottoms out. Set the spring cage into place. Set the snap ring like so. Compress the spring cage and replace the snap ring. To make more room on the bench, I'll remove the old seals and sub-kits. The new friction and steel plates go in next. Depending upon the model you are working on, the direct drum may have 4 or 5 friction and 4 or 5 steel plates. This demo model, which was paired to a gasoline engine, has 4 friction and 4 steel plates. Let's get the new steels. There are 5 steels in the kit. We only need 4. The direct clutch friction plates have a crosshatch pattern and square-shaped splines. The kit has 5 of them. We only need 4. As you can see, I've pre-soaked them in fluid. The first plate to go in is a steel plate. Again, no wavy cushion plate is used in the direct clutch. Put a friction plate in. Install the other 3 friction and steel plates. The last one will be a friction plate. Set the thick end plate onto the last friction. Install the snap ring. Lift up on the end plate and make sure there is some free play. An acceptable range of end play is between 44 and 64 thousandths of an inch. I measure 47 thousandths, the total amount of the 12, 17, and 18 thousandths of an inch blades. Turn the drum over. Reinstall the drum to sprag race thrust washer. Separate the sprag element assembly from the outer race. The 34 sprag elements are precision ground, eventually wear out, and should always be replaced. Get the new sprag assembly, which comes in the Deluxe Super Kit. The replacement is a heavy-duty type with 45 elements. It has considerably more torque handling capacity than the original one. Put fluid onto all of the elements. roll it into the outer race. You can easily install it incorrectly upside down because it is almost impossible to tell looking at it which way the elements tilt in order to lock when wedged between the inner and outer races. Simply install it onto the drum and check to see if it will rotate freely in the counterclockwise direction. The flat side of the race goes against the washer. I had a 50-50 chance of getting it right, and I did. Again, installed correctly, the outer race should rotate freely in a counterclockwise direction as you see it doing here. It will lock if you try to turn it clockwise. If you install it and it behaves in an opposite manner, remove the sprag assembly and flip it over. Turn the drum over. Use assembly lube to paste the 4-tab thrust washer onto the drum. The forward and direct drums are ready to be installed into the case. But before we do, let's perform an interesting test. Get the center support from the parts bench. Make sure the direct clutch sealing rings are present with the ends hooked together. Put a little fluid on them. Set the direct drum onto it. Make sure you are wearing safety glasses and keep your head and body to the side of the assembly. Use a rubber tip blowgun to apply air pressure to this port. This is how the direct clutch works when the transmission is placed into reverse as well as when it shifts to third gear. You should only hear a slight amount of air leakage. Set the forward clutch drum into place. Apply air to this port. This is how the forward clutch behaves when the selector lever of the vehicle is placed into drive. Again, you should only hear a slight hissing sound because the test will leak a small amount of air. Return the center support to the parts bench. Take the forward clutch drum to the transmission. Install the drum over and onto the forward ring gear. All 4 of the clutch friction plate teeth must align with and go onto the splines of the ring gear. Rotate it back and forth until it engages all of the friction plates. You can confirm that it engaged completely by lifting it back out and taking a close look at the friction teeth. If all 4 of the plate teeth are in perfect alignment, the drum was completely installed with these surfaces against the thrust bearing and thrust washer on the ring gear. The direct clutch drum goes in next. The direct clutch drum will be correctly installed when this thrust washer makes contact with the forward drum. Rotate it back and forth until all of the 4 or 5 friction plate teeth engage with and go over the splines on the forward drum. You can look closely and confirm the thrust washer is all the way down against the forward drum. The next part to install is the intermediate band. Let's get the new one from the deluxe kit. Here it is. Like friction plates, bands should never be installed dry. Soak it in fluid first. Set it into place like so. The lug on this end of the band should be against this large steel anchor pin. There is one more assembly to install before we finish this lesson. The intermediate or second gear clutch pack. Take these parts to the other work area. The intermediate clutch pack consists of a very thick end plate, 3 thinner steel plates, and 3 friction plates. Like the other clutch packs in the transmission, the thin steel and friction plates are replaced. Here are the steel plates. We also need the new friction plates from the kit. These are the new intermediate friction plates. Remember to pre-soak them in fluid. Take the new friction and steel plates along with the thick end plate to the transmission. Begin with the thick end plate. If your plate has these markings, they should face downward. A friction plate goes in next. Place a thin steel plate onto it. install the other plates in the same manner. The last one you set into place will be a steel plate. Congratulations! You've reassembled about 2/3 of the transmission drivetrain and reached the end of Lesson 11. Take a break. When you're ready, go to Lesson 12 and we'll install the center support, overdrive and intermediate piston housing, and the overdrive section.